Good evening. Thank you very much for having me.
And there we go. You should be able to hear me now. So I do apologise. It is still the DC United Kingdom podcast, and I am still here, James Graham. I mean, you've already heard him say hello, but I will reintroduce him. It is Elliot Holman of the award-winning UK podcast MLS UK Show. So we're going to talk DC versus Orlando. But before we actually get into the game, I've got a few things I want to talk to you about. And the big thing that I saw earlier on this week was Orlando City and Orlando Pride are getting sold.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that?
I think it maybe sounds a lot scarier than it is because I think we've seen some bad experiences going on in the league currently with Columbus. Obviously, Montreal have recently rebranded, much to the dislike of fans. So I think immediately when you think about a new owner coming in, there's immediate panic. But by the sounds of it, it will be quite a controlled takeover. It's the Wilf family who currently have a small stake in Nashville. Presumably, they will hand that back as they take over a majority share of Orlando. But I think Orlando City are probably in the best place they've been, especially certainly in the MLS journey so far. So it would be a strange decision to suddenly make any huge changes. So hopefully that will be for the best. We can come back to this, can't we, in a few months or a year or 3 years and see how wrong I am. But I'd like to think that it's not in a position where it needs changing. Certainly the best we've had it in a while anyway.
Yeah, I will play this clip in a few months' time when you've had your rebrand, and it will be absolutely horrendous. Like, I mean, the Columbus Crew one. Well, sorry, Columbus SC now.
Yeah.
What was your take on that, just briefly?
I think from a UK perspective, we find it really hard to understand the beauty of football in the UK and in Europe is the history. When I go to Barcelona, for example, and I get a tour of the stadium and I go into the museum, it's that same badge, but sewn onto a shirt that was laced up from 120 years ago. It's not, the badge hasn't changed 900 times, over the course of a century. So for Columbus to now be on their third badge, dropping the crew, that doesn't sit well with me, and I know it doesn't sit well with their fans either. But I just don't understand the need for it. There's absolutely no need for it whatsoever, and it's actually one of the few things that Precourt got right back in the day before moving to Austin. So yeah, fully support Columbus and and how disgruntled the fans are feeling, the crew are feeling.
Yes.
And let's hope that this stops in MLS, because we need things to settle down, and we need to move forward. We can't just keep changing things every 20 minutes. Montreal have got a new identity as well.
Yeah.
Chicago's didn't go well. That's having to be redone. Just consult your fan base. If you want to make a massive change, consult your fan base. It's 101. Like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, we as a club have gone through a couple of different badges, but it's, instead of being a completely new badge, it has evolved. So we still got that eagle, and it's kind of become a bit more modernized, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It's the fact that when you've gone a completely different shape and you've gone different font and everything, and with Montreal they've gone with a completely different name, it grinds my gears as well. But there's one silver lining to the Columbus one. They've kept SC, so they've kept soccer club, so they've kept it American.
Yeah, true. That's true.
That's one saving. When everyone else has gone FC, they've kept it SC. So
yeah, I'm with you on the badge. I don't mind sort of an evolving badge. I understand with the way that graphics are done these days. Sometimes it's nice to have a nice little cutout badge. I completely get that. My UK team Norwich on their third kit this year have got just the canary, no badge, and
Okay.
I actually really quite like it. So yeah, that's fine, but it's just the complete rebrand, and there's no need for a new identity every 10 years. It just makes absolutely no sense to me. So let's hope we're not discussing an Orlando or a DC one anytime soon.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've seen a couple of people just on the chat just saying, message to the front officers, never change the name.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much you could say on that one. But let's go back to Orlando. And it's not really your player anymore, but your top striker, Daryl DK. Just talk to me about his rise. So where he was a super draft player, wasn't he? Correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Yeah.
How has it been to see someone come from the super draft to playing in the EFL and potentially getting a signing and then even becoming a Premier League player?
DK is a really, really strange one, because I think of all, we saw Areola, of course, and Jordan Morris go from Swansea to the Championship as well. Sorry, from
the other way around.
Seattle and DC to Swansea. I think when those three went, it was a really nice move. We thought, this is great, because this is what we've advocated for. This is what MLS UK is all about. We're trying to prove that the standard of MLS is good enough for players to come and compete in Europe, and certainly in the Championship, where we've said for years there's definitely more of a parallel than anyone will believe. So with DK, it's a really strange one. He was a super draft pick for Orlando City, a very good super draft pick at a time when they needed a striker, and he offered something different. Big target man. I mean, the guy is just an immense unit, an absolute unit. And the rise has been meteoric. I mean, he literally played for the States the day before the Barnsley thing came about, and just feel really, really proud that he not only got the move, but then just absolutely smashed it when he went to Barnsley as well, and he's helped them get to the playoffs. There's no way they make it without his goals. He's been immense. So there's a real conflicting feeling where you want them to go and do well, but it's sort of like, of course, it was an Orlando player that we have to lose that goes and does it, that sort of is the trailblazer. So yeah, it's a strange one. I think I could deal with it because I feel that immense pride of him going there and doing well. And I think I could deal with it if the deal was done, we got the money and we could go and replace him. But we're currently in this sort of situation where the loan's been extended because they've made the playoffs. So the front office have traded for an international slot that's waiting to be filled. But we need that money to come through. So it's a strange one. Real conflicting feelings, especially as my team Norwich played Barnsley on the final game of the season, and DK stood there watching them lift the trophy, and I was like, this is so weird. But yeah, seriously, what a player. And I feel for the likes of Chris Mueller, who's maybe been in and around the team, made his 100th appearance last week, and is definitely capable of playing on a level with DK. Has already been in the US men's national team setup. So there's plenty more just in Orlando alone, let alone league wide, as we know.
Yeah, and that was kind of partly answered my next question, which is, what is the academy structure like in Orlando? Because you've had a few good young players coming through the ranks at the moment. So is it something that is built into the club's philosophy to bring these youth players through?
Certainly. I think not initially. The first few years in MLS, as we all know, were a tragedy. Only Cincinnati making us look good in that aspect. But it's something that's very close to Oscar Pereira's heart. I know he had a very, very strong youth setup at Dallas before he moved to Orlando. And it's something that I think certain staff members have been put in place to help and encourage, something that they've invested in a lot. the contrast to the UK, of course, is that to have an academy for Orlando, there has to be more than one. You have to cover the whole of Florida, to bring these players through. So they've now got multiple sites, training kids, and obviously now the training setup in Orlando is a lot better as well. So the Orlando B team have got better facilities. So I'd really like to start seeing those players come through now. There's a few on the roster that are officially, with the first team, but they've not particularly been involved yet. But yeah, it's certainly something that when you get those, when maybe not this season because we're not playing many Western Conference games, but when you're heading out to Portland on a Wednesday night and then you've got another game on Saturday, you're going to need those depth players. So certainly very important to get that youth coming through.
What is depth? I'm struggling with that concept right now. With
what is it with DC? And you're bored of me saying this on the podcast.
I know. Every single week, it's just like they need more depth. But to be fair,
it's so true.
We have the depth. We've got 29 players on our roster. It's just at one point we had 14 out injured. Yeah, which is I don't think I've ever seen anything quite so bad in my life with the amount of injuries that we've had. But we're down into single digits. Paul Arriola came back last night. Kevin Paredes was on the bench, and it's starting to look like the beginnings of a normal team again, which is lovely. But you've said it. Pretty much ever since you've started doing the podcast, our roster has been very thin.
It's so small compared to everybody else's. We never publish it or publicize it, but I keep data on all the teams, and just try and keep it so that I'm aware of every team rather than just focusing on Orlando. And whenever it comes to DC, you sort of think, well, I can literally choose their starting. Especially, I think last season the season before when I last appeared on your podcast, I named your starting 11 ahead of the Orlando team because it's so obvious because there were other options, but they were academy or they were playing for affiliate teams or your best 11 was so clear. And it's good, like you say, it's good to see that there's finally more players on that DC roster, and there is that depth coming through. And it's the first time that legitimately, it's the first time I've seen DC with some depth, and that will be massive. It will be massive come later in the season, maybe next season when, like I say, when those trips to the Western Conference are happening a lot more frequently.
Yeah, it's honestly the game that we had this morning, because that happened UK time, 1:08 to be exact. I'm still struggling on 3.5 hours of sleep. So if I'm making mistakes like I did at the start where I forgot to turn on the microphone, yes, that will happen. But the fact that we had, in terms of our normal first 11 players, we had Flores, Gressel, Moreno, and Brion as our. So we had 4 normal starting 11 players. So we pretty much had our second string out, and we still managed to get a credible result against, granted, Chicago have had their worst start in MLS history, but we still had to go out there and do a job. And it was great to see that the likes of Skundrich, who signed the day before and made his debut, Nyman, who's doing wonders, and Perez, who had, for me, he was that man of the match. It's just really, really good to see. But back to DK and the loss. You signed someone to kind of replace him. Bit of a superstar. Pato.
Yeah.
What happened?
I think it was on the first episode of our MLS UK podcast this year. We talked about him, and I said, if we get 12 games out of him, great. Because we all know he's susceptible to injury. He is injury prone. The crucial thing about this signing, though, is that he's not a DP that we've pinned all our hopes on. He's not even a TAM player, as we say, where they've bought him down and paid big bucks. He's literally on a normal
is he?
MLS contract. So that's why it's not an issue for me. If he doesn't play again for the rest of the season, that's a massive loss. But also, we took a risk and it didn't pay off. It looks like he's going to be back in a couple of weeks after an operation, which which is great. And that's my point, because we've not gone all out on a DP slot, or wasted loads of allocation money on him. I think it's okay. They kind of know that he's maybe not one of those players that's going to play week in, week out. But yeah, for me, still looking to fill that DK role, because Pato is not going to be that week in, week out big target man striker.
Yeah, so I think I probably know the answer to this, but any regrets in signing Pato as it stands right now?
No, I don't think so. I think maybe once we've seen him with a couple of games under his belt, we can see the level that he's at. Certainly seems extremely committed to the club. It's not always the case, as we know, when superstars come to MLS. Certainly, his heart's fully in it, and I look forward to seeing what he's got to offer. And if he plays half of the games, then that for me is a great signing for on a regular MLS contract.
Yeah, I would have sworn he was on a DP contract, because just the name he brings to the league, and his reputation. Yeah, I would have sworn he was on a DP. So the fact he's on a standard senior contract, that's insane. Fair play.
Yeah,
that's that's good negotiation skills right there.
But I think he's maybe got a lot to prove as well. I think he has this reputation, and he maybe wanted to come and put that right. In terms of, in a comparison to somebody like Nani, who's not getting any younger, but seems to be getting better and better and better. That's where you want your DP money.
Yeah, he's Nani has been fantastic so far this season, and I mean, was it 2 goals that have been quite similar, just dinking back and forth, and then just curling it into the top corner? Yeah, I'm not looking forward to facing them this weekend. So your season so far, obviously you've played 1 game less than we have, but so you've played 4, you've won 1, drawn 3 so far, unbeaten. What have you made of it so far? Because as you said earlier on, typically Orlando are not known for being the greatest of sides in MLS, but last year they had a good year. So what has it been like for you this year?
Yeah, a big expectation this year because of last season. The key for me was that they, aside from Pato, they went out and they just purchased the loan signings that they had last year. They all impressed. They were solid, made those permanent deals, which is a bit boring, but also great. It's great business. So it was just, for me, it was about building on last year. I'm quietly optimistic, just because I haven't seen us play a full strength 11 yet. Still missing Janssen at the back, who's an absolute warrior. The man is a machine, and he would start for any MLS side, and he really is a big loss. So hopefully he'll be fit. Not hopefully for you, but hopefully he'll be fit this weekend, and just to get some minutes under his belt. And he just enables the wing backs to be a lot more to push forward a lot more, and we don't need to sort of be looking to cover and be a bit more defensive when he's on the field. And yeah, like I say, Mueller hasn't really hit the ground running yet. So I'm looking forward to him. Yeah, we know he has the ability, so it's just a case of when, not if. And then, like I say, if they can get something sorted with DK one way or the other, that will enable us to have a bit more potency up top. So yeah, it's certainly it's great that we've not lost yet, but there was a couple of those games that maybe New York City, I feel like we dominated the game quite a bit and just gave away a penalty. So I think there's definitely been some really, really encouraging signs. It's just about now pushing on and converting those to wins, but there's not many teams that haven't lost yet, so I kind of can't complain.
No, I mean, for us, it's just been a bit of an opposite. It's been a bit of a tough start, obviously, with the injury crisis, but we've been very unlucky. The fact that we've scored 3 own goals so far this season, leading goal scorer right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't help. You can't plan for that. So, I mean, you look at the Columbus game where we scored 2 own goals.
2.
Yeah. Columbus, that's as my other co-host was saying, the Barbasol bees. Um, the Briant and Alfaro own goals. Jesse Zardes was just in there making a mockery of us. We played well. We were good enough to get a point out in that game, and it was the same against the Revs. We played San Jose, which was just on the road. Is always going to be a difficult one, but we beat New York City, so we got that, and we beat Chicago last night, so unbeaten at home, and that's something I'm taking quite a lot of pride in right now. But for you, what's been the biggest prize of the season so far?
The biggest what, sorry?
Pride. So what's been the highlight for you?
Oh, it's a great question. I think the way that, like I say, the way that they went about the transfers in converting those loan signings was really important. The likes of Antonio Carlos at the back, really, really impressive last year. So to see him lining up officially as a Lion, I think was really big. But do you know what? Honestly, I think my proudest moment is got to be DK. I know it's not technically MLS, but I just think that's a path the pathway that we could see open up. So much more, so much more often.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that it didn't work out for Areola, of course. Could have been playing in the playoffs. But yeah, I really like the idea that the MLS is. I can honestly tell by the interaction that we're getting with the podcast, by the amount of people that are listening to it, that DK deal has really done something over here in the UK. There's more television coverage, as you'll know, this season on Free Sports. It's starting something. So I think DK is probably my big thing, because it's kind of starting something off.
Yeah, it really has, and not just for us in the UK, but MLS to Europe in general. Brendan Aronson, gone over. Was it Salzburg? Yeah. That was a great, and he's really done incredibly well over there. So just having those kinds of players on a couple of years ago, Miggy Almiron leaving Atlanta to go to Newcastle, that was a huge signing as well. So
yeah, Almiron, I mean, even as we speak, causing problems for Man City. Really hitting them on the break. He's got that pace that it's so tough to deal with. It doesn't matter what league you're in. If you've got that pace, it's so crucial. I just keep asking Henry the question: when is Martinez going to make the move? I know he played in Italy, but you can't help feeling that he could go to a lower Premier League team and do a job.
He could. He really, really could. I mean, it's difficult in Italy because the defensive side over there is usually rock solid, so you're never going to get that many goals. But in the Premier League, you could do a bit of a job. Just had a couple of comments coming through. Stu just saying that he also didn't realise Peto was an off-budget player. Reckons his experience is going to be beneficial for you guys.
Yeah, this is the
with
thing.
The younger players.
You say about the younger players. That's exactly right. It is a young squad, and I love that Nani's heart is really in it, and you can tell he's helping out. Mueller gave up his shirt number for Nani because he just can't believe he gets to play with him. It's that, we had Mueller on the podcast, and he said, I just go to work every day and I play football with the guy who I used to have on my back when I was a kid. It's just that's the beauty for me of MLS. You don't get that anywhere else. It's those players that are playing with their idols. When Rooney was at DC, I play football on a Monday night. I'm in Derbyshire, so I'm playing against people who have got DC United shirts with Rooney on the back. 3, 4, 5 of them will turn up every week, and just because I'm an Orlando fan, it doesn't make a difference. I love that that's happening. It's great that the league really, really is on the up over here.
It really is. There's the tag of the retirement league is being eroded as we speak. It's really good to see. And whenever I speak to my mates about MLS, it's not a case of retirement league, why do you watch that? It's more of a okay. And they're actually taking a keen interest now. So that tag, which was rightly given because it was a retirement league at one point, that's going now, and you're seeing all the youth players, all the players coming through. The DK's going over to the EFL, Areolas, Jordan Morris. yeah, it's very, very good to see. But let's meander back to Orlando again, because we're going on slight tangents, and I like it. I like where we're going. But where can Orlando improve? So for us, as DC fans, what's your weak spot right now?
For me, it's the fluidity. I think we've seen last year, up until even in the MLS's back tournament, they kind of had it straight from the off under Pereira, which was impressive. It was the quick passing, the triangles. When they were attacking, and it was frightening for teams. We've not seen that really yet. We've seen flashes of it, but it's more been individual brilliance, like you touched on those Nani goals. Yeah. So I think it's I don't know whether that's teams successfully breaking them down and positioning well, maybe not pressing too much to allow the movement. So maybe it's just a case for DC of just making sure that Orlando can't fizz the ball about in the final third too much, because they are devastating when they get going. And I've never said that about an Orlando team before, but it's not bias. It's true. On their day last season, they were frightening. Still managed to put 3 past Cincinnati, and I know they're not a great side, but they're not going to lose. They're not going to lose every week. They're not. And they've got their home opener this weekend. But
yes.
Back to Orlando, I just think slowing the game down is crucial, because the longer Nani has a habit, if he doesn't have options, he has a habit of standing there. And you'll see this. He stands there and with it in between his feet, and he just waits, and he's waiting and waiting. No one dares come and take it off him. And so sometimes he can just stand there for 20 seconds, and it's like, well, I'm not going to try and get it because he's going to nutmeg me. So, but that is the game stood still. And that's what you want, because when Nani's in full flow and Mueller, they allow the way that we play. They allow the holding midfielders to push forward. So the likes of Junior Urso will make runs into the box. He'll make those late runs, and that can be devastating. So just trying to slow the game down, I think. And DC will be at home, and they'll be confident that they can do that.
Yeah, sounds like there could be a little plan there, but from the way you're talking about the way you play, it's very much in a similar sort of vein as to how Losada wants to play. We're a lot more vertical these days.
Yeah.
And we've seen in the game so far the likes of Brendan Hines-Like, who's been at centre-back. He's been running into the box, and you're thinking, oh, there's only 2 back there now, when we should have 3, maybe 4. And I think we're susceptible to a counter-attack right now. So when you got Briant at the back, who's 35 and not really got his legs anymore, that could be a little bit dangerous, especially with Nani.
I kind of think the likes of Benji Michel, who hasn't started games, he's been used off the bench mostly in his Orlando career. Absolutely rapid, and against the likes of Briant, it would be devastating. So I wouldn't even be surprised to see him start, even though that wouldn't maybe be the best 11. I think he would definitely be an option against some tiring legs on a counter attack. But maybe we use him at the end. When Briant's really slowing down.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, he played the full 90 against Chicago, so he's going to be tired from the first minute. So you could probably just start him anyway. So. And he'll just do the job. So as we briefly touched on earlier on in the show there, Orlando, in their first few years as a club, were known to be kind of the bottom feeders of the league. Yeah. So what has changed? Because you guys, as you've said, you're playing an attacking brand of football now. So is that just down to the head coach change, or has there been a completely different philosophy within the club itself?
I don't think the roster was great when we joined MLS. I think there was a lot of likable players, and I think there was a likable coach who had done great things. And so it became very difficult to criticize. But I think now when you look back, I came into it fresh. I wasn't aware of Orlando in their USL days, and I always hold my hands up about that. I discovered them when I went on holiday to Orlando once. They were just about to start their first season, and that was it. So I looked at it fresh, and I think that's really important, because Adrian Heath, great guy. It wasn't good enough. The roster they built wasn't good enough. The facilities weren't good enough. The stadium, as they've now got their own soccer specific stadium. The roster is stronger. Jason Kreis, when they brought Jason Kreis in, too many questionable decisions. Don't know if it's an ego thing, whether it was his way or the highway. But didn't like that. And James O'Connor was kind of harking back to those USL days. He was obviously a club legend. And again, for me, that's not the route to go down. You need success. And so with Oscar coming in, that's exactly what they've got. The guy is a winner. He's a tactical genius, and he knows exactly what he wants, and he knows how to get it from his players. And this is kind of a perfect storm now. Everything that I've talked about, the roster, the stadium, the training facilities, the academy, and the coach, it's really starting to come together. So that's why there's been a significant improvement. That's why they made the playoffs for the first time. And for me, not making the playoffs is a failure when you've got that roster.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Let's go to head now. So we'll get on to the actual nitty gritty. So between us, we played 12 times in our history, and that's gone down the route of DC have won 6 times, Orlando have won 4 times, and there's only ever been 2 draws between us. Just a couple of facts on that. So DC have won the last 3 games, even though we were winless in the previous 4. You guys haven't won at Audi Field yet, thanks to Wayne Rooney. Just throw that one in there. And
I watched that game in Orlando. Yeah, not great.
Yeah, I remember watching that one. I was obviously up till the early hours of the morning, as we both know is our tribal thing that we do for MLS UK, and it was so hard not to scream on both occasions.
I just had to applaud it. I don't even care. Yeah. The guy's just a legend. That's exactly what you get when you have a Nani or a Rooney. They're winners. When you turn on Sky Sports during the day, like I did today, I got home from work and Gary Neville was on doing Soccer Box, and you see those old United games, and it's always Rooney, it's always Nani, and they're winners. They're serial winners, and that's what Rooney brought you in that moment.
Yeah, he really did. That when he first joined, when we opened Audi Field, and that run that we had, made it to the playoffs. And despite that game against Columbus, it's really, really annoying me now. It's always Columbus getting beat on penalties. But that was just such a great run and such a great feeling to have. It was so unique to have someone like that, someone so big to play for an MLS team, for our team. It was an honour to be able to watch him. It was an honour for me when I went out there the first time at Audi Field to watch him play. It was because I unfortunately don't get to go to many games over here, since I moved down to the southwest of England, originally being from the northeast and being a season ticket holder for the borough, I've actually been to more MLS games since 2010 than I have to actual games over here.
Wow.
Which is insane. And to be honest, I'm not planning really to go into many games over here in the near future. As soon as we get that green light on the traffic alert system for travel.
Yeah.
To USA, the tickets have got to be booked and get that flight out there to get another game, because we just announced that from June the 11th we're having full capacity in all of DC stadiums.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very much the same with wanting to get straight back over there, and I think even in terms of just watching it on the TV here, it's having been to games, and I know you're the same, is there's nothing better than being in that stadium when it's full and it's rocking, and there's no atmosphere like it in the UK. There just isn't. I'm sorry, there isn't.
No.
And I would actually consider Norwich to be extremely, extremely good at generating atmosphere. The fans are absolutely unbelievable, but at the end of the day, it doesn't compare. And even just seeing it on TV is going to be a great moment, seeing those stadiums full again.
I really can't wait. Our first game when the stadiums are full is against Inter Miami on June 19th. I really genuinely can't wait to see how good that looks when the stadium's full. They've got rid of the digital advertising over the stands because that's
Don't
really...
even get me started. Don't get me started.
I mean, we've even still got it when we've got fans in the stadium. It's really driving me silly.
I can't deal with it. These are the stupid things that MLS do that we love it so much, but there's so much that you just think, what are you doing?
It's MLS being MLS.
It's literally the most MLS thing ever. Can you imagine that at the Etihad? Honestly.
Oh, it's just there's no words you can use to describe it apart from MLS being MLS. So how do you feel the fact that your next game at Audi Field doesn't include Wayne Rooney? How good does that feel?
It immediately gives us a chance, doesn't it? No, I still respect DC a lot. I think, like you say, they're an improving team, an improving roster. Coach knows how he wants to play. Yep. When he gets the players to do it, or players back available to do it, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. So it's not an easy game. I think this is a really tough game for Orlando. Obviously Rooney would make it tougher. Of course he would. But
of course.
I think there's maybe I touched on the DK situation and Orlando needing to replace him. And, I've said on our podcast as well, you look at when Rooney left and Kamara sort of stepping up to the plate. I'm a massive Ola Kamara fan from seeing him at Columbus and the Galaxy, but you're talking a different league there.
Yeah. I mean, he's not really set the world alight. I mean, to be fair, so far in the 2 appearances that he made this season, he's actually looked fairly decent. The game against Columbus, when he took that goal, he wasn't offside, which is a miracle for us, because he's always been offside for us. But he took it well with his weak foot. It was a lovely assist from Edison Flores. And then when he came on this morning, he literally was making some decent runs, positioning well, almost had a goal. So I think he's got a point to prove for this season. So I'm really, really intrigued to see the difference Losada's going to make in his play. So
yeah, I think when you've got a player like that from the outside looking in, I saw him doing great things at LA and at Columbus. So I think it's about, when you've got that, you have to, as a coach, understand how you can get the best out of him by playing a particular way. And like you say, getting those balls in earlier so that he isn't offside. If the runs are fine, let's get the ball, let's play quicker, let's get the ball in earlier, and give him that service. But I'm a big fan of his, and I hope it comes together for him at DC. Not this weekend, but maybe after that.
I think if we can get to double figures in goals for him, I think that'll be a success for his season compared to
I would agree.
Last season, he was joint top scorer with 3 goals.
Yeah,
I don't know whether that says a lot about him or the club as a whole, but
the team.
Yeah, that was not good. That was not a good season, but let's concentrate on this season. So for this weekend, what can we as DC United fans expect to see from Orlando? So would you be able to give us a prediction on their lineup?
Yeah, still unsure about Janssen at centre back. That's not to say that news isn't out there. I just haven't delved into that yet. But I know he's very close to being available. For me, having him next to Carlos at the back is so much more difficult to break down, especially for someone who's a bit more slight like Kamara is. He's not going to bully them. Kamara's not going to bully them. So he's going to have to create the space somehow. For me, it's about Janssen makes a massive difference for us to then, build out from the back. But I think attacking wise, Orlando have got players that can really hurt you, whether it's coming off the bench in the 80th minute or from the start. Nani's so unpredictable in a good way. He'll sometimes go all the way to the byline. You'll see him playing in the middle of the park sometimes, and then he's chopping and changing and hitting those goals that we've seen so far this season. So, yeah, they've got options which I like. They're very difficult to pigeonhole, and I think that's sometimes frustrating as a fan, but also, for an opposition, you have no idea what to expect, and I think that's where we're at the minute. We've not seen them in full flow, so if Mueller had played really well in the last 3 games, and I said to you, you need to watch this kid, but we haven't really utilised that side yet. It's all been Nani on the left, so there's definitely a lot more space for Orlando to hurt an opposition. You just feel like it's coming soon in the next couple of weeks when it all sort of comes together.
Let's have it in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, one thing I do genuinely believe is I think MLS has got some great goalkeeping talent, but Orlando's goalkeeper Pedro Jalese is absolutely unbelievable. I really believe he's up there. He's up there, top 3, top 2 in MLS. I really believe he is going to be a difference maker in the next couple of years for Orlando.
Yeah, I mean, you've actually got someone who made that exact comment, who I know is a DC United fan, about Pedro, saying that Orlando is a very good team defensively, so as a whole, but your keeper is one of the best keepers in MLS.
There you go. So, yeah, I genuinely believe that. I think certainly the best keeper that we've had at Orlando. We've had some great characters. Taking nothing away from the players we've had keeping net, but Pedro's great with his feet, which allows us to play out from the back. And when you've got Juan, who's great going forward, and Carlos, who's good, confident on the ball at centre back, it's nice. Some of the things Pedro will do gives you a heart attack. He's that confident with the ball at his feet. But in terms of shot stopping, unbelievable. And I have to agree. I really think he's one of the best in the league.
Yeah, he's not better than Bill though. Come on.
I love Bill. Bill's a legend.
He is he kept being on my show earlier on this season. He was an absolute amazing guy to have on. So if you've not seen that was season 3, episode 3. So go and check that out. So we've got a couple of questions that have come in before the show had started, and obviously we've gone through a couple of things that have come through on the chat. But Rithik Patel is asking, apart from Nani, who are Orlando's biggest threats offensively? I mean, you touched on it, things players like Mueller, Benji Michel, but are they the biggest ones?
I think it's important for players like, my problem with Akindele, who's been playing furthest forward in through the middle, is that he's not stretched the defence enough. When I said that we in midfielders like to arrive late into the box, they like to move forward. I want to see Akindele move forward more so that the likes of Urso and Mendes can arrive in space, so that they've created some space. I think that's crucial. But I have to be honest, it's boring to say Nani, but Mueller and Michel, I think, are probably the ones who you would have to say, because everyone's focusing on Nani this season because of the start, quite rightly, because of the start he's made. Yes. And actually, Michel and Mueller, who play on the other side and can play through the middle, are actually, over the next 10, 15 games, you'll find that they contribute just as much as Nani does. It's just been the way that it's fallen. So for me, I think pace is key in MLS, especially against, we know the defense isn't good in MLS. It's not just DC. I actually, the more I think about it, talking about Carlos and Janssen at centre back, just by process of elimination and other teams not being great, you probably find that they're some of the best defenders in the league, because teams don't tend to strengthen in MLS at the back at all. Whereas that's where Orlando have really, really done well in the last couple of years, strengthening wise. So yeah, I think Michel's pace, Mueller's pace against aging defenders is a pretty big asset.
Yeah, like I said earlier on, I'm not looking forward to those guys going up against Brion. That's going to be a tricky situation, to say the least. It'll be interesting to see how Losada sets up for us going on that aspect, because whether he gives Brion a rest, and if we've actually got any other centre-backs, I don't believe we have fit. No, I don't think we do right now. So that's going to be interesting to say the least. We had
I've not seen anyone set up correctly against Juan yet, who plays right wing back and
Yeah,
loves to get forward. No one stopped him yet. They kind of just let it happen and hope that he leaves a space in behind him. But
yeah,
when he goes forward, it's not an uncalculated risk. Everyone shifts over, so that he is an attacking weapon. His
yeah,
crossing lets him down. The final ball can let him down. I think Adama Traore, similar situation,
yeah,
absolutely rapid.
yeah.
But then is going so fast when he gets to the byline that no one could possibly run that fast and cross the ball. Is impossible. So yeah, I think maybe he's someone to consider as well as Mueller and Michelle.
Yeah. And just another comment just coming through about Mueller himself. About a few years ago where he came on and really tore us apart in the second half at Audi Field. I think that was your first game, and I remember watching that and thinking, he's going to score. He's going to score. Thankfully, I don't think he did in the end, but even back then, it just shows the potential he had and how he's starting to fulfill that. So, yeah, I think as fans, we're pretty worried about this weekend's game because I think a lot of people, especially on the DC Discord, have predicted for DC to get beat this weekend. So, which nicely puts me on to score predictions. How do you see the game going this weekend?
I was just going to say I'd be surprised if DC lost this. I'll be honest.
Okay.
I would be, because I think at home you've got the tools to to set up how you need to set up against Orlando. Yes, Orlando will come and play, but you know what they're going to do. It's going to be Juan going forward. Mueller's good. Nani's good. A little bit weaker with Akindele through the middle. So deploying your defensive assets to the wings is more important. You kind of know how to basically how to set up. So. There's been a lot of draw. I would go for a draw, but we've just drawn every game, it seems like. So I feel like there'll be goals.
I mean, I don't know whether you know this little fact about Hernan Losada, but every game he's managed, it's never been goalless.
Really?
Yeah, he's never had a 0-0 game in his managerial career. So there will be goals.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's whether I'm just hoping for a good, entertaining game, but I was going to go for a 3-3, but that'll probably be 3 DC own goals and
absolutely
3 DC actual goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll score all the goals for you.
Yeah,
we're kind like that. We're generous.
We'll leave Nani on the plane. It's fine.
Yeah, don't even bother taking him. I mean, we'll just put an imposter on the pitch and just put own goal on the back of the shirt. It's fine. We'll do that for you. I mean, I said on my podcast earlier this week, double game week is a double podcast week. But with my other co-host Daniel, we predicted this weekend, and I went with a 1-0 win. So I didn't think there was going to be many goals. And the reason for that is each game. 4 out of the last 5 wins in these ties between us have only ever been won by a single goal. So whether it was 2-1, 1-0, whatever. I mean, I would love an entertaining 3-3 draw. I mean, that would be. I'd happily have that, and we'd remain unbeaten at home. And I would love it to be an equaliser from the halfway line or something like that, just to add the value to the game. When it's 3:00 in the morning and my eyes are barely open, like they are right now, I would love something like that. So I will take you 3-3, but I'm still going to go for my 1-0 win. Keep it clean sheet for the second game in a row.
I think if it was in Orlando, I think with DC having the midweek game and Orlando not playing, I think it would be different. But
yeah, absolutely.
It's also a case of whether Orlando go full strength, whether they want to take all the players on the trip. So, I'm going to go for 3-3 and just just hope for the best.
Like I said, I'll be happy with that. It means we'll be entertained, and there's a reason to stay up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So that brings us to a nice tidy end there. So I will say thank you, Elliot, for taking the time out to come on to this little show that we have here for DC United. If you wouldn't mind just letting the listeners know where they can find you if they want to follow you and your podcast on social media.
Yeah, so we do the MLS UK show, which is focusing league wide, which my eyes don't thank me for in the middle of the week when it's the West Coast games. But yeah, so we are at MLS UK Show on socials, and you can find us on YouTube and all your podcast providers. We just mess around and talk about football. It's what life's all about.
Yeah, and drink beer.
And drink beer, yeah.
Yes. I've watched this week's episode. I've seen those beers.
Good spot.
Yes, and I saw the save. Great save, by the way. I will give you that.
Yeah, that's Henry knocking cameras over and me thinking, "Oh no, you're not knocking this beer over." No.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well just sign for an MLS team with those kind of catching skills right there.
Yeah, to be fair, but the trouble is the defense is so bad in most teams. I'd be under too much pressure.
Oh, like I said, thank you so much for coming on. And for you guys out there, if you're not following on Twitter, it's at DC United Kingdom, Facebook and Instagram, DC United Kingdom FC, and membership and merch links are in the description below. But once again, thank you, Elliot, for taking the time out, and good luck to DC for this weekend. Good luck to Orlando. I say that through gritted teeth. But until next time, I will say